stand-up comedy, your host and MC presents Comedy Appetizers, a podcast where you will find short comedy sets, stories, and funny bits from the famous and not so famous. Here is your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Hey, we have another great short comedy set. This one is recorded back in 1981 with a good friend of mine, Jerry Seinfeld. Originally out of New York, he came out and started working my club in 1980, and then he went on to fame and fortune. You may have heard of him. What's really great about Jerry is he's still performing today. But he, as funny as he is today, you can hear on this recording how great he was back in the late 70s and early 80s. And on this short bit, Jerry's talking about taking his dog to a fast food restaurant, and then talking about his living room from his days as a kid and owning a parakeet. It's funny, you got to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Jerry Seinfeld.
They don't know what to do, and then there comes a great moment of frustration. You stop in some place, get something to eat. This kills him. You ever stop, you get a hamburger, you sit down in the car and you eat the hamburger? This blows his mind. Instant food whenever you want it? Do you know what this means to him? You ever see the look on his face? He looks over at you. How did you get there? Are they giving everybody in there now? You think I could get one? They can't get one. They can't get any. Dogs have no money. Isn't that amazing? They're broke their entire life. They get through. It's incredible. You know why dogs have no money? No pockets. That's the whole difference. Because they see change on the street all the time. And it's driving them crazy. You know, when you're walking him, he's always looking up at you. That was a quarter. I could have bought a biscuit with that. Nickel. He's gonna look at you. But pets are fun. I gotta tell you the story about, I gotta tell you one more thing before I get into this. My parents' house, where I grew up, we had a very small living room in the house. So my mother made one wall of the living room a mirror. You know this thinking? She always tells me this gives you a feeling of space. This makes it seem like you have an entire other room. What kind of a jerk walks up to the mirror and goes, hey, look, there's a whole other room in there. There's a guy in there looks just like me. Who could fall for this? My parakeet would fall for this. Parakeets are not bright. They have a very small head. We would let him out of his cage sometimes, to fly around. And he would fly into the living room, up to the mirror. He would just make a beeline, crash his little head right into the mirror. Now, I don't get it. I mean, even if he thought it was another room, you'd think he'd at least try and avoid hitting the other parakeet. Thank you.
That was Jerry Seinfeld, recorded live on stage back in the early 80s. And he is as funny today as he was back then. It's amazing, his career. And that was material that we could all relate to, so it's always funny. Stay tuned. We have more great comedy coming up in future shows. Be sure to tell your friends, share the podcast, rate it if you can. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Comedy Appetizers. Be sure to share with family and friends, and we will see you this Sunday for our regular podcast, your host and MC, and again next Friday for another episode of Comedy Appetizers. Bye!